And I think another thing too is when when people are frustrated about decisions and things of that nature, people don't realize there's two things happening. And y'all already know I watch a lot of football and I watch some basketball. I know that they do it in basketball as well. I'm not sure about other sports, but I know specifically the football. They show you the rules damn near every game.
Mhm.
They show you they have somebody come on and break down a certain flag every
I
single.
was I, I was covering the Bronco Raiders game yesterday, right? Every time they threw a flag, on the big screen showed holding, and then a paragraph or two long about what holding is, what
No shit.
encroachment is, what
Oh wow.
illegal formation is. Literally, like, yeah. So to your point, yeah.
People have grown up learning how to judge based on what the person next to them said, whether it's their dad or their uncle or friends or cousins or whatever the case may be. You haven't been told how to judge by boxing. You've been told how to judge by the audience you're around. And so I've even realized this, that people that I respect in the game, like I respect people, there's people that I respect in this game, and they felt like Terrence Crawford lost his fight against Madrimar and told me he didn't, you got to take the belt from the champion. Please break that down to me. What is taking the belt from the champion? Somebody that's not an aggressive fighter can't all of a sudden, I have to take the belt from the champion, so I have to be aggressive tonight. It don't work that way. You know what I mean? But this is, if anything, this is what's come up on that scoreboard. Take the belt from the champion. And now there's people in this world that they all have different notions of what that means, you
I
know?
think I think that cliche in the sport was stronger in decades past. I think it doesn't really hold up now. And the real point of take the belt from the champion, it meant instead of winning one, and that phrase really comes from the 15 round era, where you'd literally have fights that were 8-7, one way or the other, right? And 8-7 mathematically is closer than 7-5, which is as close as we could get in the 12 round era, right? But that's a 2 point difference as opposed to one. Yeah, I think it's so back in the day, they'd have said like Michaela Mayer didn't do enough to take the belt from the champion. But you and I know at the end of the like those belts are hanging in the air. Think of it like a WWF ladder match. Like the
Yeah.
belts are hanging in the air, and whoever can grab up and take them takes them that night. There is no tie goes to the runner like
Yeah.
like reaching first base in baseball. Like it's just whoever wins more rounds wins the fight. It doesn't matter who's who. You got to remove the names from it. You got to remove the accomplishments from it. Whoever, if you win, if you pull out 6 rounds in a 10 round fight or 7 rounds in a 12 round fight, you won the fight. So yeah,
We're not gonna fix this problem and we'll move on after I say this, but I really want to like give this one more go and explain to people from a psychological perspective what plays into a judge's mind when it comes to judging a fight. The way you're supposed to judge a fight, every round is like the first round. Every round, it's supposed to be brand new. But psychologically, we recognize behaviors, we recognize patterns, and when we see certain behaviors and certain patterns, what our psyche ingest is that's what's going to happen, and that's what's happening. You'll have a fighter makes an adjustment maybe after 3 or 4 rounds, but judges may not recognize that adjustment because their mind
yep.
is fixed on the previous patterns and behaviors that they've seen. So a really hard fight, I believe, hard to score two really hard fights to score. My fight with Keith and my fight with Errol, for different reasons, but very very similar reasons as well. Where you notice the pattern of big punches being landed in both those fights, opposed to accumulation of punches, and you may have gotten your psyche may have gotten caught to, well, he's stealing rounds with bigger punches. Is it so much that he's stealing rounds with bigger punches, or is it because it's not happening every round, but is that where your mind and your brain is fixated on those certain patterns that you've seen? You know what I mean? Statistically, I beat both those guys, which is like crazy. If boxing was based on statistics, if boxing was based on the numbers, the way that every other sport is, I win both those fights.
Carson, if he was on here, he'd smack that down. I know he
Yeah, yeah,
would.
one
He
hundred
would. He
percent,
would knock that down. But
100%, one
no,
hundred
he.
percent. But you can't, it's like people say, men lie, women lie, and numbers don't. So, but the reason why I said all that is because I want people to understand when you think you're seeing one thing and something else happens at the end of the fight. Number one, respect to everyone, but you got to understand that you've learned how to judge a fight based on the people around you, not based on most people, not based on going to boxing gyms and watching sparring, not based on being ringside at fights, watching multiple fights, and certainly not based on being shadowing other judges and referees and being taught how to judge and referee fights. And so, that's one side of it. And then the other side is, you got to understand that the psychological side of it, a lot of judges have a hard time letting go of what happened the previous round or rounds, and it has an effect on what they're seeing in real time in that moment. So
Yeah, you got to be present for all 3 minutes of every round. You can't make your mind up too early in a fight. Like while you're talking about it, Max Kellerman did a great job of that in the Canelo Khan fight, where when I first watched that fight, I thought Khan was up 5-0 on Canelo before he got knocked out.
hmm.
But Max was actually the one pointing out that in rounds 3, 4, and 5, he's like, Canelo's actually starting to catch him and outbox him while coming forward.
Hmm.
And you couldn't see that unless you watched the HBO broadcast and kind of peeped what Max was talking about. So yeah, it's I see it all the time in commentary where yeah, one guy's doing one thing for a couple rounds and they just stay stuck on it and they don't adjust to what the other guy's doing. They don't adjust their commentary to what another fighter's adjustments are, and they kind of get their mind made up early and stay on that narrative for the rest of the fight. So